Phones can make incredibly cinematic videos, but you need to know how. In fact, phones have the potential to be much better than dedicated cameras. If you give me a couple of minutes, I'll explain. During my adventures in Iceland in 2021, I filmed a vast majority of the moments spontaneously with my iPhone 12 Pro. Additionally, during my travel in Jordan, I filmed most of my shots with this rigged out Pocket 4K cinema camera. Total overkill. But in my final video, I ended up using tons of footage from my iPhone. And guess what? Most people didn't even notice. Just because I said everything was filmed on this camera, people didn't assume that I used this camera at all. So yes, I've filmed a ton with my iPhone, and some of the shots are great, some of the shots are not great. After using my iPhone 12 Pro to create travel videos for over a year, I've learned a lot, and in this video I'm gonna share everything. I will break down the video into 3 categories. First, I'm gonna talk about which shots to get, POV, B-roll shots, how to compose your shots. Next, I'm going to talk about the settings on your phone and how to export it. Now, this part is specifically for the iPhone. And finally, I will cover the strengths and weaknesses of filming with phones so that you know what it does extremely well and what it doesn't do very well, so that you can avoid it and maximize the strength of your phone. The best thing about smartphones is that you have one. So if you're ready to level up your filmmaking skills with your smartphone, then let's get into it. First off, let's cover some filmmaking basics. What shots should you get with your phone? The easiest would be to just do a vlog shot like this, the whole video. But then you'd be sacrificing all these lenses right here. These are the best lenses on your iPhone. Here are all the shots that you should be getting with your phone. These are the shots that we call B-roll, and another way to think of them is show, don't tell. Here is my checklist of shots that I try to get. First off is POV shot. Imagine your eyes are a camera, so you're filming sort of like this. What I like to do generally is to film my feet and then have like a reveal shot of what's in front of me. POV shots are also very good when you're sitting inside of a car, because usually a car is a pretty cramped space, but it's such an important part of traveling, so you want to share that part. And it also helps connect 2 scenes together, because if the audience sees you in a car, they know that you're on your way to the next location. Next, I like to film myself in the environment, usually from a further perspective. Another way to refer to this shot is the hero shot. And my favorite version of the hero shot is when you're behind the character, or yourself in this case, and then you see the environment in front of him. That's a great shot, and it just really brings you into that cinematic feeling of looking into your world through a window. Now, of course, if you have somebody traveling with you, you don't need a switch pod. You can just hand off the camera to them to film it. And of course, it's gonna feel a little unnatural and staged at first, but trust me, this is what every single YouTuber does. They plan out their shots and they execute, and you have to do that too. Not everything is gonna look great if it's just spontaneous. If you plan out your shots first, then when you edit your video, everything's gonna go much more smoothly. The last type of shots you should get in any location are the detail shots. Now, this is where something like the 2x camera on the iPhone is great. You wanna show off some details. You wanna show off the little icicles hanging in the cave. You wanna show off the grass in the environment you're hanging out. You wanna see the texture of the rocks. For example, if you look at my camera rig video, you'll see that I have like a big reveal shot of the camera itself. Great, that shows the environment or the subject. But then I have a lot of these detail shots just showing the nooks and crannies and the texture of the object in front of you. The reason I call these texture shots is because they really make you feel like you can touch the object in the video. It just really brings your audience into the world. And now I'm gonna film a quick little example introduction of this entire room. Essentially, I'm gonna get every single B-roll shot that I mentioned just now. Looking at that B-roll of this room, you get a sense of what's the room like? Is it messy? Is it clean? Who's living in the room? Are they into cameras? Are they into travel? There is so much information conveyed in the environment and just showing rather than telling. All right, next let's talk about the settings of your iPhone. Personally, I use the default camera app. I just think everything looks very good from the default app. You're gonna want to go to the settings of your iPhone and scroll down to camera. And inside camera, you can select record video. And here, it's very important for you to check on show PAL formats and also check HDR video. This unlocks a lot of recording modes. For me, I like to keep it at 4K 25 FPS because that's the frame rate that I've conformed all my cameras to. Now, a quick side note for those of you who don't know what FPS means, it means frames per second, which means every 1 second your camera takes 25 pictures that create a moving image. So in 1 second of this video, you have 25 pictures. 24 or 25 frames per second is really what you should conform all your video to, because this is what we feel is cinematic. This is what all the Hollywood movies use, and it also feels more natural. It's not too smooth. Whereas if you film in 60 frames per second, things become a little too smooth. And also the file sizes will be larger because now you have 60 frames per 1 second. It's more than twice the frames. The final benefit of filming in 25 or 24 frames per second is that if you have fewer frames per second, that allows the camera to get more light into the sensor, which makes your camera produce better images in low light. However, there are some times when you want to use 60 frames per second, and that is when you're filming the B-roll that we covered earlier in this video. When you film in 60 frames per second, it's easier for you to slow down your footage. You can actually slow it down by 40%. These B-roll clips that I filmed them all in 60 frames because that way I can slow them down to 25. So what I do is I highlight them all and I go to clip attributes. It says video frame rate 60 and I change that to 25. So now you're gonna see it's all played in slow motion. Super easy way to do it. It's perfect, everything's super smooth. Ah, look how nice that looks. Making everything in slow motion makes it more dramatic, but also it smooths out the motion, making everything glide so dreamlike. Going back to the settings of your iPhone, you want to scroll down to the Photos app and you want to find the option called Keep Originals. If you do not check this option, Keep Originals, the phone will try to convert all your video files as you're pulling them off of the device onto your computer. Now I just want to quickly say that 90% of you will probably be okay with just keeping this setting on automatic. The reason why is because the natural colors of the iPhone actually look really, really good. And when you keep it on automatic, you don't have to spend any time color grading your footage. If, however, you choose to keep originals, what you're gonna get when you import the files into your editing software, it's gonna look all green and washed out. So basically, color grading becomes mandatory, not optional. And there is a bit of a learning curve to get the hang of it. So for most of you, you're gonna get great results by just keeping it on automatic. However, it would be wrong of me to completely omit this step because this is what I do, and this is part of working with your iPhone files to make them look the most impressive as possible. So now I'm gonna spend a moment just to explain how I do my color grading on my iPhone footage. But for those of you who just wanna keep it on automatic, I suggest you just skip ahead in the video to whatever timestamp I put down here. Alright, so you've gotten your footage into your editing software. In this case, I'm using DaVinci Resolve, and you're gonna notice that the footage looks kinda washed out and not really great at all. So I'm gonna show you how to actually make this HLG HDR footage from the iPhone 12 Pro look super nice. So you go to your color page, you get a few nodes here. I got 5, it doesn't really matter how many you have. Usually I leave 1 empty, and then on number 2, you go to your effects and you find color space transform. Drag that over to your node, and these are the things you have to manipulate. So here, these are the settings that I use. So you put the input color space to Rec 2020 and then the input gamma to Rec 100 HLG. And look at the image right now, and I'm gonna toggle it on and off so you can see the difference. See that? You suddenly get lots more color, contrast, it just looks very nice already. You don't really have to do much more than this. But what I like to do now is I go to the first node and I go to the HDR color tabs, and here you can just add a little more saturation. So maybe like 1.10 is good. And the picture is looking a little bit bright, so maybe I'll drag down the lightness a little bit, not too much. And we can toggle on and off the HDR. You see it makes a huge difference already. And then I have additional nodes just in case I need to make additional adjustments. If you want the best colors out of your iPhone but don't want to spend any time coloring your footage, you can actually go to my Gumroad page and download 4 of the LUTs that I've prepared for you. I named them John Bear iPhone HDR LUTs. Let's try, for example, Blue Steel. And there, easy as that. Now, of course, for the LUTs to work, you need to use the Keep Originals flat color like you can see here. Alright, we're getting to the last part of my video where I'm going to talk about the strengths and the weaknesses of shooting with your smartphone. And if you've liked the video so far, if you've gotten value from this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. First strength is that pretty much every single wide-angle shot looks amazing. Your phone perfectly exposes the ground and the sky. Everything looks great and sharp, especially if you're filming in daylight. In fact, when I filmed my Jordan 4K travel video, I was using this lens right here, which is quite tight. It's a 50mm equivalent, which means I didn't really have a wide-angle shot of the environment. And that's when this phone came in. I filmed it wide and I made sure to capture the environment with this phone. The next huge strength of your phone is the stability. This probably applies to a lot of high-end phones, but my experience with the iPhone is just unbelievable. When you're doing the ninja walk with your phone, everything just looks super smooth. There's some sort of software magic going on to just stabilize your footage and make it look beautiful. Nowadays, so many people carry around huge bulky gimbals to get smooth looking shots for their dedicated video cameras. Meanwhile, you're over here like a Chad with only this thing and you're getting super stable shots. Crazy. The next strength I've noticed with my iPhone 12 Pro is that it has 10-bit HDR files. So huge plus for the colors. The next strength is 3 lenses in one. Or if you're using like a fancy new Galaxy phone, you've probably got more lenses in one. And it's so easy to swap. If I want to swap lenses on my dedicated video cameras, I have to actually physically remove the lens, hold it, make sure no dust goes into this element here, find another lens, put that on. It's a hassle. This is why when I was traveling in Jordan, I wanted to keep everything light. So I just kept one lens with me and then I filmed wide-angle shots with my phone. I could have brought an additional wide-angle lens for my cinema camera, but I decided not to because I would have to do this whole swapping dance, and I don't want to do that dance. Plus, I was filming in the desert. You have no idea how much sand just goes everywhere. And like this sensor here, getting sand in there, I would cry to sleep. And the final major strength of filming with a phone is it's always with you. It's always in your pocket. It's always there. You always have it. You can just film all the time, and that's what I love about it. But everything is not perfect. The perfect camera does not exist. And this bad boy here has some dirty weaknesses. Weakness number 1 is that it's too sharp. When you film people, their faces, it tends to sharpen the features and make people look not that great. Some people don't even notice, some people don't mind, but personally I just can't unsee the odd sharpening that the post-processing of the phones do to your footage without you ever being able to control it. And the next weakness is it doesn't film very well in low light. And probably you've experienced this. Let's say you're going out and grabbing a beer with the boys, probably sometime during the night. There's a moment where you're filming yourself and filming your friends, and when you look at the footage the next day, when you're not hungover, everything looks super blurry. Well, that's because your smartphone is not good at filming in low light. And that's where actually a dedicated video camera would probably outperform it. Now, a very important thing to note about low light is that the stabilization of your iPhone has to do with the shutter speed. And when you're in low light, the camera will actually lower the shutter speed to compensate for the lack of light. Without getting into too many details, the lower the shutter speed, the more blurry the shot will be if there's any movement in it. And actually the stabilization of the iPhone relies on having a high shutter speed. So the stabilization looks amazing in daylight. But if you're trying to film in low light and you're moving and walking with the camera, everything is gonna look blurry. Every time you take a step, the whole screen will just like get this blurry sort of hue. Even though the stabilization does its thing and keeps the frame itself steady, the actual sharpness of your image is just gonna look like a blurry mess. So if you have to film in low light, try to move your camera as little as possible. The next weakness of your phone is that you have less control over the settings of your phone. This is going to frustrate a lot of filmmakers coming from dedicated video cameras to filming with their phone, and this is probably why we have so many stubborn people who will never, ever film with their phone. But in reality, this thing captures the spontaneous moment perfectly, where you don't have to fiddle with the settings, and that is actually a strength depending on how you look at it. Another weakness of your phone is file management, and this especially counts for iPhone. When I try to access my files on my phone, I don't even know what folder it is in, and all my videos and screenshots and everything is just tossed into one big lump. Finding the actual video files that you want to use, you have to just dig through everything, and often I just copy the entire library, my entire camera roll off my phone to my computer just so I can find one video file. Oh. Meanwhile, if you're filming with your dedicated video camera, you probably just have a bunch of SD cards and you know what's on which card, and then when you finish with that project, you just format the card. Cleaning out your iPhone is much harder than just formatting a few cards. You can't even swap out SD cards on iPhones. This is probably the part of the video where you Android users are just laughing your asses off. And final weakness of the iPhone is that it doesn't have Bokeh. Bokeh is that nice background blur that you get when you're using a dedicated video camera with a lens that is fast. Another word for bokeh is shallow depth of field. However, as we've seen with the new iPhone 13 Pro, you can actually enable bokeh on videos. That is like artificial bokeh. I've never tested it myself. I can't say if it looks good or not, but hey, you know, it's going in the right direction. But in the end of the day, I don't think artificial bokeh is ever gonna match natural, beautiful bokeh from an actual lens with glass elements. And unfortunately, there's no way around physics. You need to have like a thing like this with multiple layers of glass that produces that beautiful, smooth image. And smooth is the key word here. Smartphones are always very sharp, but if you're using natural glass, you get that smooth looking cinematic video. Alright, that's the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. I hope I covered this topic extensively enough. If you are ready to use your phone and level up your filmmaking, I want to see you put everything you've learned in this video into practice. Now again, if this video gave you any sort of value at all, it would mean so much to me if you subscribe to the channel and hit that like button as well as hit that bell. That way you get notified whenever I upload a new video. My name is John Bear. I do a lot of travel videos. I do a lot of filmmaking videos. On all my travels, my phone is always my backup camera. I use it more than you think. I sneak those little shots into my videos all the time. Currently, I live in Dubai and I work as a cabin crew traveling around the world. If you want to be along for that adventure, subscribe to the channel and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.